All right, thanks everybody for joining us today. This is our year in review 2024, Outlook 2025, kind of quasi-webinar, more informal than a webinar. You know both of us. There may be somebody on here who doesn't know either me or you, Neil. Do you want to say anything by way of introduction, or do you feel like everybody knows you?
I think if people don't, they can look at some
They can search Google
somewhere.
All right.
I mean, Greg and I
Okay.
have been at this for a long time.
Yes. Okay, great. All right. So our agenda today is I've pinned you, Shika, there. Okay. Our agenda today is just a little bit about the context and what's going on in the market. We're going to sort of explore some of the questions and themes that we've looked at all year through these different surveys and investigations that we've done. We're going to show you some key findings from the 4 main surveys. We've got a franchise survey in the market right now. We don't have any results from that. But our 4 main surveys, 2 small business surveys, an agency survey, and then the consumer survey that we just published. We're going to talk a little bit about what we've learned and then talk about predictions. And again, we'd encourage you to participate. We'd love to hear your opinions, your questions, your contrary ideas if they disagree with what we're talking about. So just quickly, why did we start this for the folks that aren't members? AI, generative AI in particular, is a kind of structural change in the market akin to the internet itself, PCs and the internet in the late 90s. Smartphones the iPhone was introduced in 2007. This is a major disruptive change, which is starting to play out. Neil and I have been in this kind of local space, broadly defined, for 25 years-ish, doing things together and independently. And we really saw this as an important topic that we wanted. Hey, everybody. We wanted to investigate further because it's very consequential. And so we're looking at consumer behavior, local businesses and its impact on them, agencies, and the sort of SaaS partner ecosystem, which is tied up with all of these things. We launched basically formally in March of this year, and we've done a lot of stuff, as you'll see in just a couple of minutes. So this is an incomplete discussion of what's going on in the market, but just to summarize rather than reading the bullets, basically we've got a lot of money coming from a lot of big companies and VCs, investing in foundational models, investing in startups, and you probably can't even imagine the number of AI sort of centric or AI first startups that exist. I mean, it's just proliferating like, sort of mushrooms after a rainstorm. And we're seeing uneven adoption in enterprises among small businesses and agencies and consumers in a different context. There's lots of talk and hype and enthusiasm, uneven adoption. But with small businesses, adoption rates, it sounds like I am reading the bullets. With small businesses, adoption rates are kind of unprecedented. Small businesses have always been dragged sort of kicking and screaming into these new technologies. Using fear as a motivator. You have to do this because your customers are doing this. They are ahead of the curve here. They are ahead of enterprises in terms of their adoption. They're not as sophisticated as enterprise users, but in terms of overall penetration, they are ahead of them. We're just starting to see the impact on sort of jobs, and it's a very complicated thing, but it's starting to emerge. And as we'll see in a few minutes, consumers are increasingly comfortable with AI and using it for all kinds of things. And then, of course, agents are coming next year. I'm not going to go into this in detail. Basically, these are sort of questions that sort of support our research and that we're thinking about. One central question is SaaS incumbents versus sort of AI-first insurgents, and how the two are competing, how these new companies are coming to market, basically with more intuitive products and maybe more aggressive pricing, and how that's going to play out. We've done a lot of stuff this year. I won't go into this in detail. Surveys, a lot of content, a lot of slides, and a bunch of webinars.
Let's stop right there for a second. Anybody have any questions about why we're doing it, or the coverage we're focusing on, or any input. Greg and I came at this really to bring clarity to the marketplace. We clearly believe that AI is going to make things very challenging and choppy and complex for a while. And our job is to bring some clarity to all of you who are members, even to the non-members to a lesser extent, but to the members, real clarity about what's going on in the marketplace.
In the local marketplace in particular, there's a lot of discussion of AI generally, but we're focused on this kind of specific application.
And we really do believe, I think we both believe that AI may have a much larger and more significant impact in the next couple years on the smallest businesses, on the medium-sized businesses, then maybe even on enterprise companies, because they are so time constrained as business owners, and they need to do more with less. It's hard to find employees. So we really think that done right and applied right and used right, AI can really be a significant lever for small businesses to be more successful, to be more effective, and to make more money. We're going to see. That's what we're aiming to find out.
Small businesses, and yes, Todd, there are many definitions of SMB. So our first survey, which is displayed here on this slide, included businesses from 1 person to 499 headcount, which is the U.S. Small Business Administration of small business. Really, small businesses under 100 employees. The second small business survey we did was dominated, I think it was 80+%, with fewer than 10 employees. We can segment all our data by any criterion, including headcount. Yes, Todd, go ahead.
Nope, I was just going to try to give you a thumbs up. Thanks for the clarification.
Okay. Yeah. So one of the caveats here is I'm showing you aggregated data. When you segment by headcount, by growth orientation, by industry, you see different things in the data, and some of these things shift and change. So we're only talking about sort of the highest level kind of aggregated data in these surveys. So let's get into it quickly. I'm reversing the order chronologically here. The most recent survey we did was consumers. And so I'm going to talk about that, and then we'll go into the SMBs and then end with the agencies. So 1,000 consumers had to be at least weekly search users, and they had to have used AI at least once. So very low bar there, but weekly search users, regular search users. This group, well, we extrapolated to the larger US population. 44% of US adults have used AI at least once. Now, among our survey respondents, all of whom are AI users, at least broadly defined, 57% of them use it daily, which is very significant. And so the people that are members have heard some of this data pretty recently, but just to repeat it, this is a very significant finding that there's high engagement with AI. We asked them what their go-to tool was. What do you use most often? What is your preferred tool? That's ChatGPT. But Gemini was surprisingly close behind, chiefly because of a lot of Android users. Google is really pushing Gemini on Android and other places. So Gemini is benefiting from that. And then, of course, Meta, and sadly, Bing is in 4th place, notwithstanding all their efforts. We asked them, if you had one tool, search, AI, and we gave them a choice of 11 or 12, what would you use? If you could only use one thing for research, pre-purchase decision-making, what would it be? Of course, people said Google, but not far behind ChatGPT and Gemini. When you combine those, it's almost the equivalent number. So this is an illustration of people becoming really comfortable, increasingly comfortable, and finding a lot of value here. So they're willing to give up Google in many of these cases. We asked them, are AI and search the same or different? They said, we said, are they basically interchangeable or are they different? And they basically agreed, almost half, that they're the same, or you can substitute one for the other. Again, significant, because that's a pathway to moving on from Google. And then we asked them at the end, what do you think is going to happen in 3 years? These are people, it's important to understand, these are regular search users, and they preferred Google to AI in most contexts. We asked them questions about, various topics, various categories. what do you think is going to provide a better experience? Across the board, it was Google. But these people believe that in 3 years, we're going to see a very different search landscape and AI will dominate.
So I think the takeaway from the consumer piece, for us at least, is that I think the numbers were higher than we would have expected. I think we're seeing that, this has gone on in the space of 2 years, and lots of this has probably gone in the space of 6 months. So there's very rapid adoption. You can look at the mass media and hear all about it, but here's some real data that says that these consumers are actually starting to use these things. They're liking what they're getting out of these things, and to us, that's a really significant takeaway.
Right, and this is Google's first bona fide competition in many, many years. Is Google going to go away in 3 years? Is Google going to see its traffic drop to 0 or drop to 25%, whatever Gartner said it was? No, probably not. Google will still coexist alongside these tools. What we're going to see is more fragmented consumer behavior and more complicated consumer behavior, with AI probably peeling away a lot of the informational top of funnel searches. Google's still being used for navigational queries and transactional queries. So it just makes things a little bit more complicated for marketers who have to optimize against these AI sites.
One other thing I'd like to say, and not to go back too much in history, but when we used to do these surveys 20 years ago about the shift from analog media to digital media, from print yellow pages to online yellow pages, we saw that the consumers were leading that charge. And to the extent that consumers will lead this charge, businesses will have to quickly follow to make sure they're being found within these AI tools. And that's going to be a very significant challenge in the local marketplace. And it will also, we think, encourage business owners to make sure they're staying abreast and staying on top of things. So,
right,
there's a lot of leading indicators here of what's going on.
That whole optimization conversation is a longer, different conversation,
but it's an important one.
But yes. Our first small business survey happened at the end of Q4 2023, beginning of January. We released it in Q1. 1,000 local business decision makers. As I said, Todd, before, 1 to 499 head count, which we have segmented in multiple ways with a bunch of verticals represented. So these are the biggest challenges. Acquiring customers across the board is a challenge for all kinds of businesses, whether it's big or small. But marketing is a big concern. Hiring, as Neil mentioned earlier, is a big concern. And then integrating new technology. So all of these things sort of fall under the rubric of technology challenges, marketing challenges. We think AI is going to be very helpful with those. And also with the employee question, because one of the big benefits is not needing to hire as many people to do certain things. Who's doing the marketing in these organizations? In half of the cases, it's the business owner or somebody one single person within the organization. A small number of people going outside to vendors or agencies. There's a big opportunity to pick up more small business customers, but that's a pretty low number, and it's a reflection of a lack of trust, a lack of perception of value, or a lack of budget. Just real quickly on spending, we asked about marketing spending, we asked about SaaS spending. The bulk of people are spending less than $2,500 US a month. Not much to say there. There's a range of spending. There's some folks that are spending a lot of money, some folks that are spending less, but this is kind of where it lands. And I thought there was a question. There isn't. What are the most effective marketing channels? We asked them what they use and what they perceive to be the most effective. This is the most effective. Social media, which is also the #1 thing they use. Paid social, paid search, email, and SEO. This is a very interesting, the data we have around this is very interesting. Can't go into it now, but this is kind of the most effective things as they perceive them. And it varies, as I said earlier, by industry quite considerably and by size of business. Now, one thing that must be said is that small businesses don't aren't data scientists. They're not monitoring, they're not doing complicated media mix modeling. They're not doing deep dives into analytics. They're sort of, in most cases, using their intuition, using anecdotal information, and what they use tends to be what they think is effective. SaaS priorities, we ask them about what are critical software categories for them and where are they going to invest money in the future. This slide reflects where they intend to make future investments. Marketing is number one here.
I would say number two, there is something to be really mindful of. We were on a call yesterday or a couple of days ago with somebody who has a very large pile of small businesses hanging off of their business ultimately. And they brought up the issue of IT and data security, that this is kind of an untapped opportunity for SaaS players to help solve for small businesses. And I think as hacking goes on further, as customer record issues become more of an issue, I think there's going to be a very large opportunity in that data security piece.
For these small businesses, 59% are using or testing, say they're using or testing. This is all survey data, so you always have to be sort of cautious about how much this translates into behavior. But 59% say they're using or testing. The bulk of those are using. And what are they using? Here's the list on the right. What are they expecting AI is going to do for them? So this question was sort of framed in a way as to, what is the future impact? But it both contains kind of present benefits that they're seeing and a kind of wish list, what they hope for AI. So this is what they think is going to happen. It's going to improve efficiency, make software easier to use. One of the big problems with SaaS is that it's too hard to use for a lot of customers, or people can't get the full value from features, too much of a learning curve, not intuitive enough. This is the real opportunity for AI to make it much more usable. To simplify acquisition, going back to the biggest business challenge, reduce their costs, which is one of the benefits they're already seeing in terms of efficiency, and reduce the dependence on unreliable employees, or a sort of a revolving door in some industries of employees. Hiring continues to be a major pain point. AI will address that to some degree, depending on the vertical. Our second small business survey. Any questions on that before I move on to the second survey? No? Okay, or comments? Feel free to make any comments or totally disagree with anything. The second survey was done through Alignable. We pushed it out through Alignable in October. And if you don't know Alignable, they're LinkedIn for small business. This is a sample with a much smaller headcount population. So we had 1,500 total respondents. The vast majority of them are fewer than 10 employees. And this survey, the first survey that we were just talking about, was extended much more broadly than these slides reflect. It encompassed all kinds of things. This was much more focused on AI adoption. In this survey, 54% using or testing, similar to the other number. But interestingly, 21% were not interested or felt that it was not applicable. These are, Luddites or resistors or people who...
Or solopreneurs.
This was an older audience also. It skewed older. That's another factor here. How often are they using it? 50% are using it on a daily basis. If they're using it, that's significant. The engagement is significant because it creates a feedback loop where they're finding value, they're using it more, they're learning about how to do more things, they're more deeply integrating it into their businesses. Casual users fall away, engaged users don't. It's the same in software. 32% using it on a weekly basis. So a big group, 32%. So this combined group is quite large among the AI users, and they're fairly engaged. Where are they using it? Marketing. This is one of the areas that in our first survey, people really needed help with, wanted to invest more in, and we're hopeful that AI would help them. This is where it's entered the market for most folks, and by far it's the dominant use case, but here are some others, including customer service with chatbots, and then a whole bunch of others. Logistics, supply chain, scheduling, inventory management. Here, the gap between ChatGPT and Gemini was much greater. That's owing to the fact that these are smaller. So, more than almost 3x the gap here between ChatGPT and Gemini, owing primarily to the fact that they're smaller. Now, in terms of the non-adopters, the people who don't think it applies to them or aren't interested, they have a philosophical objection, at least superficially on the surface. And then there's a bunch of practical issues. You know, they don't have time, they don't have the expertise, they don't have a sort of a vision for how it gets integrated to their business. But a lot of these people, I think, go ahead, Neil.
I just would say that if they put on their consumer hat later in the day and use ChatGPT or some of these tools, these non-adopter barriers will start to go away, because like with all things, once when you start to see a use case, maybe it's to plan a trip for your personal life, you'll say, well, what if I did this for my business, or what if I did this for my business? And I think this year has really been a year of really testing and trialing what this technology can do for people. And I think the more people use the technology for a variety of use cases, the more they'll start to say, well, I could apply that in my business. I could apply that in my business. I could start to apply that in my business. So I think, 2025, we're going to see all these use cases that people tested and trialed in 2024 really start to take hold in 25.
I think that's in fact what's happened. There's so much awareness and so much discussion in the media of AI and ChatGPT and some of the other sites that this is how people, we found almost total awareness, and the entry point is sort of curiosity and consumer use cases, as you're saying. We've done exploration and talked quite a bit this year about this idea of an AI assistant or coach or companion. It's showing up in multiple contexts in different ways. There's an AI assistant, which is just a sort of a search box or a UI without any sort of branding or personification. And then there are progressively higher degrees of what we would call personification or branding. So Gusto, the software company,
has Gus, I think it's called.
Has Gus, and various companies have branded or personified their assistants. But there's a lot of interest in having a tool you can use to ask general questions that you can use almost as a daily companion or advisor. People talk a lot about the AI employee or AI team member. This is sort of a similar concept. I have questions. I need help. Where can I turn? And this extends into the consumer market as well. We asked about this concept in consumer context. People were very receptive to it. So we're going to see more of this kind of thing, again, sort of productized and branded to varying degrees.
On that for a second, Greg, go back 1 second on that. Running a small business is a lonely exercise. And you can go home and ask your partner how to do something in your business, but they may have no clue really how to solve that. I believe that this notion of a companion or an agent or a coach is really going to start to take shape, and it's probably going to be done by vertical. So there'll be a companion that can help dentists run a dental practice. There'll be a companion that will help an auto repair shop, because it will have the subject matter expertise wedded with sort of the, what do I do about an employee who doesn't show up? They'll sort of do functional and vertical stuff that will really start to define what that companion can do. And when that starts to happen, the combination of the vertical expertise with the functional knowledge, we think that's going to be a very big deal.
Well, and the intuitive UI and conversational interaction.
Yes.
And one of the things that we haven't discussed here that we can't get into too deeply is data, right? Sort of behind this, Neil's comments, is the idea of a very reliable, high quality database and data set that can answer these questions or that can provide the advice. And so that's an X variable in terms of the companies providing these tools. So agency survey conducted in November, almost 300 agencies, diverse client bases, revenue sizes, headcount. So, we have some that are making very little money to some that are making millions and millions of dollars. We've sliced and diced this a whole bunch of ways. This is kind of a snapshot. But interestingly, when we did a sort of a segmentation between small and large agencies, we found Yes,
Yes.
marketing and digital. Well, there are a bunch of different kinds of agencies in here, mostly marketing agencies, digital agencies. Excuse me. 50% of these are focused on small businesses, again, which raises your question, Todd, about how you define a small business. But small businesses were present even among the client bases of the larger agencies. This is familiar. What are your biggest challenges? Clients, scaling, servicing clients, and managing costs. And again, this looks very different depending on the size of the agency. Typical lifespan for client accounts, the average was a little under 3 years, and a little over 3 years was the median. These guys are way out in front of the market, out in front of enterprises, out in front of small businesses. The vast majority are using or testing, and ChatGPT is the favored product. But again, when you get into larger organizations, use of Gemini goes way up. And that's probably tied into Google Cloud, Google Workspace, et cetera. What are the top use cases internally, and what are the top use cases for client work? We have a lot more data on this, but this is just a sort of high-level snapshot. You can see what these are: knowledge management, training, data analysis, project management, BI, internal communication, collaboration. And then in terms of the creative, the client-facing work, content, which is familiar to everybody on this call, social media, web copy, building websites, it's landing pages and so on, translation, and then SEO, which is another version of content in many cases, but not exclusively. There's technical SEO stuff there too. What are the benefits? We ask everybody, what are the benefits you're seeing? Creativity, productivity, increased service delivery, more insight into customers. And we've talked to a number of our members, and that's definitely happening and really, really valuable. And then improved client services and satisfaction, probably owing to speed, efficiency, greater productivity. Are you seeing more clients? You retain clients? You're getting more revenue on the basis of your adoption of AI? And in different ways, they're all saying yes. Acquisition, this number is pulled down by the small. So there's a big difference here between small and large. Large are having a lot of success across these fronts. Small, less success with revenue and acquisition than the bigger agencies. So if you were to sort of segment this, you would see different numbers for large and small, but this is the average. What are the agencies? Agencies are very bullish, but they also have concerns, and they're worried about being displaced by AI-centric or AI-savvy agencies that might outcompete them. They're really worried about devaluation of services and pricing impact, which is a real thing and starting to happen, that they're not going to be able to charge as much for services because AI is going to bring costs way down. That's going to happen to salaries as well, but that's another discussion. And freelancers, there's a whole kind of conversation about the agency environment and structure and employees and so on and so forth. And then in-housing, which is a major fear and a very bona fide, legitimate fear. I think they're going to be more, we talked about how small businesses, only 18% of them are outsourcing their marketing. This will give them confidence to do more, whether or not they should be confident in doing their marketing because of their competence or lack of competence. This will give them the sense that they can do more. So some challenges here, and also on the big client side, it's really, I think, a concern.
And yet, if agencies really deploy these technologies inside of their agency businesses, they can improve their cost structure and ultimately then take that improved cost structure, use it to buy additional media for the same budget that they were buying before, and actually deliver a better ROI downstream to their customer, to their clients. So there is tremendous opportunity. Yes, there are risks to the agency space, but there are tremendous opportunities in the agency space to really leverage and improve efficiency so that they can deliver better ROI to their ultimate client.
And adding to that, I think the answer to these concerns is service. Beyond sort of more efficient media buying, better ROI, there's the idea of delivering a better service experience to the client. And that's the human element is the thing think differentiates the agency from just a pure technology play or pure machine play. We know several startups right now that are trying to provide sort of all-in-one or quasi all-in-one AI-based marketing solutions to SMBs and radically reduce the cost and disintermediate agencies. And so the response to that has to be sort of human services and sort of, as Neil was talking about, sort of more effective,
Improved
more efficient.
efficiency. Absolutely.
Right. And one of the interesting things that's not in here is we asked everybody, would they go down market? Would they pass savings on? Would they go down market to reach lower budget clients if they could bring more efficiency to their operation? And they all, not all of them, but majority said yes. Okay. Any comments on any of that? We're sort of rocketing through a lot of material. These are highlights, but we're going through a lot of material. Anybody want to say anything or dispute anything or ask a clarifying question? Yes, Peter.
Yeah, I wonder what ultimately will be the test of success for businesses, whatever size. Success would normally be measured either by lower costs or higher revenues. Lower costs in terms of having less employees is a subject which I've heard debated all over the place without any conclusive evidence that it's going to have a significant impact on the number of employees that you need. At a recent conference, somebody argued that it wouldn't reduce the number of employees, it would simply increase the value of an employee who is AI experienced. Okay?
Well,
None of us know the answer to that, but it is, I think, speculative as to how much money people are going to save by having a lower headcount. Well, which then takes us to the other issue as to how do you measure the revenue impact, because that's the other criteria that you would use to measure success.
Neil, go ahead.
I don't think we know any of these for sure, any of these outcomes for sure, Peter. I'll say from our own perspective, from Greg and I running this thing for now a year, we've been able to do a lot more than we could have done without these tools, frankly. I mean, we leverage these tools as well. And so, you know,
but it didn't reduce our costs.
Well, but it didn't increase our costs.
We didn't have to hire any freelancers.
Right. We didn't hire somebody to build our decks and build our, you know, build our tables. We've done all that with these tools out there. So, thoughts on a possible shift from marketing agents to an AI agency?
Yes.
I think that's
yes.
Very, very likely. Yeah.
So one of the things that's going on, one of the dynamics is that you've got a lot of companies who are doing marketing on behalf of customers, whomever it is, businesses, whatever, small businesses, medium-sized, large businesses. Then there are companies that provide infrastructure and provide operational SaaS tools, right? So you know,
HR,
there's a laundry list of them. So these two worlds are going to collide because the marketing people need to move over into operations to some degree, even if it's only CRM, to some degree, to reduce churn and to gain a stronger foothold. And it's a logical product extension in some cases. The operations people like Toast or Service Titan are moving into marketing, have moved or are moving into marketing because it's an area for expansion for them and to get a greater share of wallet and to provide value-added services. So, and to the point about agencies and service, you know, small businesses want more from their agencies than just leads. That's one of the questions we asked. They want a lot of help across the board. They want software buying advice. They want help to understand their business. They want help to make their business more efficient. They want help with you know, a range of non-marketing, traditional marketing functions. So the answer is yes. The question is how you deliver those services at any kind of scale. And I think there's going to be a lot of experimentation and a lot of sort of, you know, evolution of these models as we go forward, as, you know, competitive pressure and the technology permits, you know, and compels people to behave differently. I wanted to say something to Todd. Did that answer your question sufficiently, or do you have a follow-up?
No.
Well, can I just address the question about headcount reductions?
Yeah, I'm going to address the.
What is your view? What is your view? Can we anticipate significant reductions in headcounts?
So-
At small businesses where they have 3 people, I don't think so.
Sure.
At large enterprises, absolutely. But we're not focused on that. I think what we're going to get out of this for the small businesses, they don't have to go try and find that 4th person to do some of the marketing or some of the, translating an account record from paper into digital. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that is fairly routine that, small businesses have to hire a part-time person for or something. I don't think they'll have to do that, but that's my opinion.
I think, Peter, I have a slightly different opinion than Neil. I'm sort of less sanguine about the hiring issue. So for small businesses, I think there's a lot of
Yes, Todd.
yes, everybody's going to do more with less,
Or
I think
more
for-
with the same. Or more with
I
the
think-
same.
I think that small businesses will see a lot of benefits because it will extend their capabilities, it'll extend their reach and sophistication. And I think, for those at the very low end that are not going to hire a lot of people anyway, maybe they don't hire a freelancer or contractor. In the middle and at the higher end, I think it's a much more complicated and industry-specific question. So next year, we're going to have a lot of agents. We're already starting to see that roll out. Salesforce and Google and Claude and ChatGPT are talking about agents, and these are tools that run business processes or run processes. It's sort of more sophisticated automation, and you're going to see at big investment banks, you're going to see not as much hiring or staff reductions. In certain industries, there's going to be a big impact. In other industries, it will be a less obvious impact. So the buy now, pay later company, Klarna, which is, I believe, based in Sweden, said they haven't hired anybody for a year as a byproduct of AI and the AI and enabling their current employees to use AI.
Greg,
Yeah,
I think sort of back a little bit to the local small business stuff. The trade services guys, the people who run HVAC, the women who run HVAC and real trade services, I think the opportunity for them is to not hire that person to sit in the office, but to spend the money on a
Right.
technician,
right.
to train a technician. And I also
the
think
budget.
AI will be very helpful in training these technicians. And if you look at all the data, that's one of the greatest challenges to growth for those trade services is finding capable technicians. And so I think, if I were, I think there's going to be money put against that. And in the hiring and training of technicians, using AI to both hire and then to train, I think that's going to be a very significant opportunity.
Yes. So to finish the point, Peter, yes, there will be a jobs impact. It will be complicated. Goldman Sachs had a report that said 300 million jobs across the globe could be impacted. It's not going to be black or white. It's going to be very specific. I mean, these examples that Neil is giving, I think, are valid. You'll have a redeployment of resources in some cases. You'll have reduced hiring in some cases. All of these businesses see the reduced need to hire people as a benefit, although it's down the list for them. The startup Freshworks, another startup, laid off 700 people and said, we're going to use AI and we're going to refocus our business. And so there is going to be an employment impact, but it's not going to be doomsday, and it's not going to be the utopian, you're not going to lose your job to AI, you're only going to lose your job to a person that knows how to use AI. That's a kind of cliche already, and that doesn't explain what's going to go on. We'll see that unfold in various ways in different contexts in 2025.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so do you want to, to the extent that I know anything. So do you want to add anything to this, Neil? What have we learned?
I think it's worthwhile for people to take a look at ServiceTitan's recent IPO. And we wrote a piece about it that, $9 billion market cap, 10,000 customers. Clearly the market really wanted some IPO SaaS company to go public. And so there was a lot of momentum behind it. There are a lot of people interested in seeing it be successful. At the same time, that sets up an incredible umbrella for a lot of companies to go underneath that price point and do the same thing with tools that are easy to use. I mean, it just speaks to the opportunity that's out there for both a company like ServiceTitan to go beyond the verticals they're currently in, and for other companies to get into that space. And so I think the market, at least for now, is rewarded Service Titan. In 3 years, we'll see if they continue to reward them in the same degree, and we'll see what other companies sort of merge into the space. We talk about that in some of our predictions coming up.
Yeah, so I'll just say a couple of things, sort of looking back over the course of the year. The degree of adoption in some cases has been surprising. There's some AI doubters and AI haters out there who think this is really mostly about hype and smoke and mirrors, and the ROI isn't there, and it's not really delivering. I think that you can make critiques of individual products, and you can make some of these statements about hyping over, too much hype. But I think this is a profound structural change in the market, which is as consequential, as we said, as the internet or as mobile. And it may not play out in the time frame or exactly in the way that people anticipate, but we will look back and say there is a bright line between when generative AI sort of was introduced and before that time.
Think about we talked to a wedding photographer who applies AI to culling through their images, and they've added a day of taking portrait photography to their business because they reduced the time that they had to go through looking at photographs, and they gave themselves a new opportunity, a new line of business by simply applying AI to what they used to do. We're going to see that in ways that we can't even sit here and imagine today. And so those are really where the opportunity is. It's unlocking these places where we spend a considerable amount of time that is not huge value added, and it's going to open up opportunities that we never imagined. And I think that's where we're going to see things.
And to
Thanks,
your point,
Justin.
And to your point, Peter, about how you measure success, this is an illustration. So this particular individual, this is real example. This particular individual has created an extra day by more efficiently doing something that used to take a lot of time, and now can go out and make more money.
A revenue-making day. Added a revenue-making day to their lives. You do that over 52 weeks, that's really significant. That's really significant. Doesn't have to add people. It's really significant.
So does anybody else, we're going to go into a couple of short predictions discussion, and then we'll wrap. Anybody else want to make any comments or observations or statements?
Anybody think we're smoking stuff? Todd's laughing.
Todd does. No. Okay. Well, Jamie, hopefully you've been Okay, Peter, go ahead. Hopefully, Jamie, you've been seeing this all year.
To summarize, so you would say success is going to be based more on revenue generation than cost saving?
No,
I think it's I don't think you're going to measure it that way, but I think we're gonna see instances like, did that photographer, was that cost savings? Well, that time savings, I would call it time savings, Peter, for the small business. It's more about time saving and opening up a revenue opportunity rather than pure cost savings.
Yeah.
Because time is all they have. That's really all small businesses have. They have time. And if they can get more of it to use it differently or better, more effectively, that's really valuable.
It's either going to be margin or it's going to be top line revenue. So we know of people who have, in one instance, shifted particular functions from the US to an offshore location and used AI as a kind of quality control mechanism and increased margin that way. So you're going to see a bunch of that kind of thing, not offshoring necessarily. There may be onshoring and elimination of a lot of sort of, in the sort of call center world, that's a big question. But increased margin from cost savings or top line revenue. Those will be the sort of bottom, so to speak, bottom line ways of judging this. But there will be other KPIs, that people will look at. Okay, so we have a few predictions here, and we'd like to have you guys, offer anything up that we have not captured. And this is obviously not an exhaustive list. Neil, you want to go through these?
Sure. AI tools as we've been talking, will empower the small business to streamline stuff, maybe not reduce hiring, but reduce, maybe reallocate people within a business. As I talked earlier about, instead of hiring somebody to do front office stuff, they might hire a technician instead. That's really valuable. And they might extend their reliance on external agencies.
Or for people that have administrative functions like a medical practice, small medical practices, you need, one person to run the front desk or two people instead of 3 or 5 now, that kind of thing.
See you, Jamie. Thanks for joining us. Industry focused tools. We talked a little bit about that, where they're industry focused. One of the advantages those in the space have is that they have the data to learn from. So a company like Henry Schein, which is the biggest supplies seller to the dental industry, and they have a Dentrix, which is their software platform. They have both the data to learn from and the software in place. They could do, they can be very successful in that dental space with AI solutions. SaaS transformation.
One quick point.
Yeah.
This goes to the insurgent versus the incumbent point. If you've got more data, if you can create a solution that's more tailored and more specific and solves more pain points for your industry, you're going to have an advantage over somebody who has just a sort of a higher level horizontal solution. So this is really a product sort of decision / question and go to market. Go ahead, Neil. Sorry.
Think about the companion for the auto repair guy. If that machine learned from the auto repair industry and could tell that person, well, in the auto repair industry, here's what you do about an employee instead of here's what you do about an employee in the dental trades. Well, that's much more beneficial to that auto repair guy. So that vertical specification is going to be very, very valuable, and that's going to be learned by the data that's there. In the SaaS market, yes, in discovery, exploration, and I can't see the rest.
Experimentation. Yes,
yeah.
We agree.
New entrants. We think there'll be new entrants that will try and disrupt the incumbents in the SaaS space. They're going to build the tools with machine. They'll build them with machines instead of with people. They'll have way more of a cost advantage. Will they be able to sell? Will they have the data beneath that? We don't know. But though they will certainly be out there trying, for certain.
Right. The barriers to entry are sort of awareness, distribution, awareness and distribution are big ones for
and knowledge
and data. Right. The data, awareness, distribution, and data are the barriers for the startups. Legacy structures, cost structures, and products that have to be sort of re-architected or re-engineered are sort of the challenges that the incumbents face. I'll take the first one here. So 2025 is going to be, you're going to hear a lot more about agents, and agents are just machines that will optimize a workflow and take humans to some degree out of the process. And that's going to be widespread in a B2B context in various industries. Consumers are going to see some of this. We're hearing about it from Google. We're hearing about it from ChatGPT. We're hearing about it from Anthropic. If you're a Perplexity Pro or whatever their paid version is, their shopping experience is essentially an agent experience where they collapse a number of tasks and accelerate the process for you. So this is going to show up in a lot of ways in different contexts and different industries, and it could impact consumer behavior quite significantly depending upon what products are built. But there's definitely going to be a profound sort of B2B impact, probably in the enterprise, in sophisticated enterprises, but also among small businesses for these SaaS companies that have lots of data, lots of expertise, and can really create these workflows for small businesses. ServiceTitan is an example of that. That's one of the things that they're talking about, is things that all of these trade services need to do. They can build automations for, and they can remove sort of the necessity of doing a lot of the manual work. Coaches is your...
Yeah, think about all the executive coaches out there. If I were an executive coach, I'd be think I'd be lending my expertise to somebody who's building an executive AI coach model, because and what it's going to do, it's going to bring that executive coach functionality. It's going to democratize that. Today, only the corporate 1,000, CEOs and CMOs can afford to have an executive coach or an AI. Now that's going to be available to the guy who runs an auto repair shop or the woman who runs a beauty salon. There's going to be a little AI coach that's going to help them understand, and it will know that their industry and help them make better decisions. I think that's going to be a fascinating space to watch in the small business space. And then content and search, Greg.
Yeah, so this is a really big topic that we're just squeezing into a paragraph. So if you know anything about the search industry, one of the things that motivated the helpful content update, Google's algorithm update, was just sort of a lot of low quality AI content. That was one of the factors behind it. Automated, a lot of automated content. We're going to see more and more and more and more and more AI content. The best practice is have a human supervise it, curate it, edit it. But I think as a practical matter, there's just going to be a lot more sort of regression to the mean, bland content, a lot of noise in the market, which is going to be a problem. And authentic content, differentiated content that's more interesting, is going to be prized. Distribution is a question. Attention is a challenge in any marketing endeavor. A lot more to say here, but we don't have the time today. And then, as we discussed at the beginning of this, more and more people will embrace AI for a range of tasks, and some of that will be at the expense of search. Again, Google's not going away. It will continue to dominate its, within its sort of domain, but it will be used for fewer things, or it will be used in tandem with AI tools. And in my personal case, my use of Google has completely changed. I use ChatGPT multiple times a day, all day. I use Perplexity, I use Claude, I use Gemini. Google is a tool I use to find specific things that I'm looking for, navigational search, or somebody sends me, like Neil is always sending me articles in Apple News. I have to sort of get the headline and then go find the URL. I use Google to do that kind of thing. And so there are specific use cases, transactional, navigational, that Google will still, especially in local, Google is sort of far and away the leader, will still be used, but we're going to see people migrate some of their behavior to these AI tools. And, to the point about coaches, a lot of sort of professional services are going to be shaken up, financial planners,
Lawyers,
accounting, right? So there's going to be a lot of, if you reflect on your own behavior, it's already happening. So that is the end of our predictions, I believe. Yes, that's the end of our predictions. Anybody want to add their own, Darby? Right. The way we're using coach, so the statement is try Boardly.ai. It's not an executive coach, but an AI connector. Right. It's the way that we're using coach or companion or assistant is very broad. There's just these tools will be a layer on top of a lot of data and these workflows, and the degree to which they are personified or branded will vary, and it'll be different for B2B and B2C. They will see a lot more. If you look at Character AI, which is a company that Google substantially bought, but not really, people are having relationships with their avatars. They're getting emotionally invested in these avatars that they've created. And we will see some of that translate into these business contexts where people ask questions as they would of a friend or a mentor. And to the extent that these services are personified, that will reinforce the emotional connection or the relationship that they have. Any other comments or questions? Peter?
Am I exceeding my question quota?
No.
Yes,
It's
but you have one more.
No,
all
welcome.
This
all
is your
welcome.
limit now, Peter.
No, not at all. All welcome.
A question relating to how do you see the accuracy of information improving? I do tests from time to time where I ask questions that I know the answer to. And I very frequently, I don't know what percentage, but very frequently get wrong answers, which of course tests the credibility of the answers to questions that I don't know the answer to.
Right.
How do you see that developing in the future?
So 61% of our consumers survey respondents said that they trusted the content that AI was creating, but we prompted them about concerns, and accuracy was a concern. And people generally know that these systems have a tendency to hallucinate or make up information or get things wrong, and they disclaim that. Even it's small type, but they disclaim that on the UIs themselves. I think there's a whole technical discussion here which we can't enter into right now. People are working on it. They're aware of the problem.
Right.
There are people who will argue that it's the nature of the beast, the way that these things operate, that you can't completely eliminate that. You can minimize it, but you can't completely eliminate it. So I think it's a very valid point and a valid question. And when you get a wrong answer or you get multiple wrong answers, it kind of jars you, and you think, oh, can I really trust this information? The way that I use it, and the way that I think people will use it going forward as they become more sophisticated, is that they will write better prompts. They will know to double check. They will have sort of systems that they use, whether just mentally or through confirmation using another AI tool that will validate the information. So there will be various strategies.
There's been plenty of bad information pre-AI out there.
Well, Google is full of spam, for example.
Yeah, there's bad reviews out there. There's fake reviews. I mean, there's all sorts of bad information out there. I don't think this makes the issue of bad information any worse. It just is another platform to push up some wrong information.
It's a vulnerability for sure for these products. But I think in the context of B2B use cases where they're trained specifically on internal data or a specific domain, good data, where it's not general sort of web search substitute or using the internet as a whole or using some broad web-based data set, it's data that's based on sort of a specific company or specific industry. I think you will have less of that problem, although I don't know statistically how much less.
We've been testing for ourselves, Peter, a little tool that can search our own data, the stuff that we've generated, and I've asked it questions, and it's very good. I mean, it learns very quickly. It's impressive. So it's what's underneath. It's what the data it's learning from. I mean, fundamentally.
So we're basically at time here. What we're going to do next year is more of the same, only deeper, and we'll sort of be more specialized. We're going to look at front of the house and back operational use cases. In addition to more operational use cases, we're going to try and get deeper in our qualitative research. So more of the same. We'll have more consumer data. We'll probably have more SMB data in addition to the agency and franchise, which we haven't yet looked at. So if you're interested in talking to us about joining, we're obviously available to do that. If you have other companies or friends, colleagues, happy to talk to them. But I think it'll be a very, very interesting year next year. And if anybody has any final comments that they want to make, please. Yes, thank you, Peter. Thanks for all your questions.
Thanks for joining.
If there aren't any final comments, we want to wish everybody a great holiday. We want to thank our members for their participation and their support. And for everybody else, tell your friends about the newsletter. It's free, and enjoy your time off. Hopefully you're taking some time off, and we'll see you next year.
Yeah. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Greg.
Thanks, guys.
You bet, Keaton.